Hi, and welcome to Talks with Shay. So today I would like to begin with reading from Job chapter 13 and verse 15. And it says, Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him, but I will maintain my own ways before him. So today, for part 4 of your GPS, I would like to talk to you about reliable. So when I think about reliable, and we're talking about your GPS, I'm talking about when you put that GPS on, whether you have the little old-fashioned little box ones or you're using your cell phone or something like that. Those things are really reliable. We trust those things a lot. We put a lot of our trust into the GPS to get us to our destination where we're heading. Well, when I think about different ones that, they have different apps. Let me say it like that. You have the Apple GPS. I'm an iPhone person. You have the Google Maps. You have Waze. They have so many different GPS that you could choose, but when I think about different ones that I've used, some of them haven't always been reliable. I know, like I mentioned before, I shop on the side, and there's been times where it literally, I would put it in the GPS to go somewhere, and it took me to the wrong destination. And I'm like, oh my God. So I got these people groceries in my car, and I'm like 20 minutes out, so it happened to me a couple of times that I can recall. And I'm like, man, these things just be tripping. And so I normally use my GPS for when I shop. I use the one that's connected to Google Maps or whatever. So I remember when I told the lady that it took me at a wrong location, she said, well, can you try using the Waze app GPS? And so I put that one in, and well enough, I was 20 minutes out from her house. Now, that wasn't my fault, but one of the things it taught me is that these GPS are not really reliable. That cost me my tip. That lady didn't even tip me. She was mad, but I'm like, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my doing. I put in what the GPS said, and for some reason it kept changing road to boulevard and whatever else. But anyway, needless to say, I didn't get tipped, which is okay, but I couldn't depend on that GPS that day to take me to my destination where I was going. When I think of just the spiritual side of things, and I think about God himself, just like the scripture we just read, it said, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. I think of different seasons of my life, where I felt like God was slaying me and I didn't know how to fully trust God. We could sit here and say, oh, I trust God, because that's lip service, and that's the right thing to say, and that's what we're supposed to do, is trust God. But in the back of my mind, I was wondering, like, but God, why? But God, how? But God, because it made no sense to me. And so sometimes when we go through things in life, we don't always necessarily understand the why behind it, the how, and what could possibly good come out of it, right? Because it looks so dark at that moment. But I know one thing for sure, that every season of life that I've walked through, that was rough and that was dark, and I felt lonely and all by myself and doubted God just a little bit, because any little bit of doubt is still doubt, and wondering, God, did I mess up, or did you mess up? And in my mind, I'm like, well, God didn't mess up. God don't make mistakes, so I know that. But because it didn't make sense to me, I really didn't understand. So I wasn't 100% trusting in the plan and the work of God that he was doing in that season and at that moment of my life. But I know one thing for sure, when I look back of all those different things that God brought me from, and if I look back and I say, okay, I doubted him just a little bit, but doubt is doubt. I didn't trust God 100%, but look how it turned out. It all worked out for my good. And so when I think about just different times in our lives where we go through things, we depend on this GPS and we trust that this GPS in our lives of driving gonna take us where we need to go. And we trust sometimes more in that technology than we do in God. When he's the one that has panned out your path before you, he has already orchestrated things to take place in your life, the good and the bad, but for it to work out for good for you. And so many times we get stuck in the rut of what we're going through that we forget to recognize that if we put 100% of our trust in God, he's gonna take care of us. You see, if it's up to us, we're not going through anything, nothing hard, that's for sure. We want to pick this trial, pick that trial, or pick this battle. I'll battle this, but I don't want to battle that. It's not our decision all the time. Now, there's some cases that we put ourselves in certain situations, but there's other times it's just out of your control, or out of our control, should I say. But one thing that I know for sure, if we can learn to trust God at 100%, without doubting that he has our best interests at heart, it will put us at a place of peace and ease in the midst of the things we're going through. It doesn't always make sense at that moment, but once you look back, it made so much sense. A lot of times, even when God started removing certain people from our lives and we don't understand, and it's like, God, but how? But God, but why? But God, it don't make sense. I've had an encounter with God a couple of weeks ago, about a week ago, I should say, and he brought some clarity to my mind about why he removed this person and that person from my life. And I was just like, wow, because my thoughts would have never went there. But he had to show me some things to help me to understand some things. Then I was able to recognize what he was doing in the midst of that. Now, does it happen overnight? No, it don't always work out like that. Did God answer me immediately? No, he did not. But I kept knocking. I kept seeking and I kept asking because I wanted him to give me some clarity on a certain situation in my life. So I don't know what you're dealing with right now, but one thing that is reliable is God. He is 100% trustworthy. People fail us. People let us down. But God never fails us. He never lets us down. He is always reliable. We rely on our GPS sometimes more than we rely on God. Let God be your GPS today. Let him be the one that you trust at 100%. No doubting, no fear, no regrets, no nothing. Because even in the midst of everything we go through life, and sometimes we regret certain decisions that we've made and things that we've done. When I look back and I say, you know what? I don't regret those things that took place in my life. You know why? Because I learned a lesson from it. The only time sometimes that I think people regret certain things in their lives is because the lesson that they were supposed to learn, they didn't learn. Every trial comes with a lesson, and if we don't learn that lesson, guess what? We go through it again. And then we can't even move on because we're stuck. We're stuck where we are because how can we move forward if we're not even letting go of the things that God is doing in our lives? And when I'm saying let go, like the saying says, let go and let God. Let God control the things that's happening in your life. Put your trust completely in God. Stop trusting in people's decisions more than God's. Stop trusting in a GPS to get you to your destination more than you trust in God. God already knows your beginning from the end. He knows where you're heading. He knows what your destination will be. So why would you not trust him? Why would we, let me say it like that, not trust him at 100%? Because it doesn't make sense at this moment? It will later. More than likely, it will. And a lot of times, some of the things that we go through, it's for us. That God is trying to pull some things out of us. So wherever you are, whatever situation you may find yourself in, let God be the one that you rely on the most. Not your physical GPS to take you to your destination, but let God be the one that you trust to get you where you're heading. He has plans for your life. He knows what he's doing, and he sees your ending. Even when you don't see it, he's working, like I said before. So trust God's GPS. Trust God and know that he's reliable. He will never leave you nor forsake you. And so many times we quote that scripture over and over, and it sounds so cliche. But if you really sit down and think about it, y'all, real talk, he is trustworthy. He never lets us down, and he has yet to fail you. Even when we go through our darkest moments, he is still good and he is still God. So I don't know who you're putting your trust in today, whether it be a court system, whether it be your spouse, whether it be a friendship, whether it be anything, your children, whoever it might be, your job, your boss, whatever. Trust God more than you trust them. I think of this thought just came to my mind. How, a lot of us get direct deposit. We trust that on that day that they say they're going to pay us, that they're going to pay us. We make arrangements according to that payday. We should not trust in that payday and our jobs more than we trust in God, who is our ultimate provider. So whoever you're leaning on and trusting on today, don't trust them or those things more than you trust God. He's got your back. He sees where you are, and he knows just what your destination ahead of you will be like. Let him do what he wants to do in your life. Rely on God, depend on God, and most importantly, trust in what he's doing in your life. So before I go, I just want to remind you, if you haven't already, check out my website at www.talkswithshay.org. You can subscribe to my videos on YouTube and find me on Facebook. Like my page, share my page, invite your friends to like my page. And until next time with Talks with Shay, Shay is out. Y'all be blessed.